Yeah, I just told you that the Dutch market is not that matured yet. So maybe a lot of you are talking about right now, like listeners are thinking, what is this guy talking about? But maybe you can take the listeners or someone who's watching this on YouTube of the process of selling. So what are the steps that are being taken before they actually sell or getting close to a deal?
So there's the whole preparation, which we call exit ready, and that can be, a few months up to 2 years, 3 years, when the entrepreneur actually presses the green light to start a formal exit process. There's 7 steps in that process, in our process. The first is preparation, in terms of preparing the documents. So thoughtful one-page teaser to grab the attention of the M&A folks at the buyers. A 50+ page info memorandum, an online data room with all the relevant data structured by supply chain, finance, and so forth. That's sort of step 1. Then it's all about getting the marketing going, the distribution. So you need to approach all the relevant buyers, whether it's any one of the 89 Amazon aggregators, any one of hundreds of relevant PE firms if the brand is big enough. And so forth. We prefer a rifle shot approach as opposed to a machine gun approach. Some people will blast out a teaser to, hundreds of targets. We prefer to be a little bit more thoughtful and spend more time approaching a smaller number of targets. When I say smaller, it's still tens of targets. After marketing, then it's about getting as many LOIs back from these bidders. Surprisingly, 36% of entrepreneurs only get 1 LOI. And one of the reasons for that is they do the deal themselves and they just sign an LOI with the first person that offers it to them. To get the best deal, you need to have a competitive auction process. And that's where certainly an advisor like Fortia can help. When you get all those LOIs in, it's the devil's in the detail, as I mentioned. It's about trying to compare them in a like-for-like basis as best as possible, looking at how much of the consideration is upfront versus deferred, how realistic is the deferred component of the consideration, and so on. Ultimately, then it's about giving exclusivity to one of those preferred bidders that you feel you want to give your baby to, and that you feel is rewarding you for all your hard work. The bidder usually wants 2 to 3 months of exclusivity to roll up their sleeves and do due diligence. The due diligence is incredibly intense. There's various work streams such as supply chain, marketing, finance, product roadmap, and so forth, where the Fortia group, the company's accountant and lawyer, will advise the entrepreneur to make sure that they're not being out negotiated and are getting ultimately a fair hearing. That all leads then to a document which seals the deal. That can be either an asset purchase agreement or a share purchase agreement, depending on whether you're selling the company or just the brand.
What's the trend in that? Like, do you see more asset deals or more share deals? Or
well, in the States, they're predominantly all asset purchase deals, because it's from a tax perspective here in Europe, depending on the jurisdiction, it's more tax effective for the entrepreneur to have a share purchase agreement.
Yeah.
So yes, certainly in most European countries, we're seeing SPAs, but the buyers prefer APAs because then they don't have to take all the associate risks and liabilities that come with a company, as opposed to just buying the brand or the Amazon account.
Yep.
So ultimately, then it's about signing that document and doing other completion documents with the lawyers and their advisors, and then you sort of move to post-completion stage, where, depending on the negotiation and the wishes of the buyer and seller, the founder will stay on in some capacity. It could be as a consultant, it could be as an advisor, or maybe it's on a full-time sort of brand manager basis, depending on the scenario. And then it's about trying to get the entrepreneur as much of the earnout as possible, much as the deferred component as possible. Mm-hmm. So that's a quick run through of the steps. We last summer, Baz, we published an exit guide, a 70-page exit guide for Amazon entrepreneurs, and we're in the midst of updating that for edition 2, which will come out in mid-January, and that goes into sort of all of that process in a lot more detail. And we can send a link to your community.
Yeah, that's so great. We'll paste that one in the show notes. Yeah.